People don't realize that. If we don't adopt technology right now, then eventually there will be legislation that will force everybody to do it, because some countries are already adopting stricter laws and requirements from construction all the way to managing real estate assets.
Alina, so how did you first got into real estate?
Hashem, that's a good story, because, if you would have asked me 10 years ago or 15 years ago if I would be in PropTech, where I would embrace the technology at the level I do today, I would say that, maybe you're not right, or you're imagining. But I started by knowing the industry. I started by being a real estate practitioner here in San Francisco, where I'm based. I'm originally from Romania, actually. I came here 25 years ago, and I never practiced real estate in Romania. And needless to say, at the time I left Romania, real estate industry was pretty precarious. It was not what it is today. I think it has changed a lot, but I got to know that through my connections as a ambassador of the US real estate to Romania. But we'll get to that very soon. So I started as a real estate broker in San Francisco almost 20 years ago. And that was a practice that was very useful to me. First of all, California, I'm a California licensed broker. As you know, in the United States, each state has its own licensing laws. I cannot practice with a California license in Florida or in Nevada or in other states or in New York. So you practice just in California, but California is a country itself. So we have different rules and different ways of practicing as well. Although in theory, I could do real estate in Los Angeles, that's not the way it goes, just because Los Angeles is an hour and a half by flight from here. And yes, the licensing requirements are the same, but it's just not the same. San Francisco is a very complex market with a constant demand for housing and very limited supply. It's very difficult to build. It's also limited in space and has been a lot of red taping in terms of construction. It's nothing like the Miami market, for example, or New York market, or Las Vegas or Dubai. A lot of environmental, practices as well. And also we are earthquake country. Therefore, the real estate, it's one of the most expensive in the world. But also the due diligence from a real estate broker are at the highest level. So I was happy to join the rank of real estate professionals here, and a lot of my colleagues come from tech area, from the law or what other fields which are related, and enhance their knowledge in real estate. And also, I was lucky to have clients that I learned a lot about and from area of technology, because we are Silicon Valley. Therefore, my interest in technology was very high from the beginning. And even 20 years ago, I started with a company that was great at using technology, but didn't quite know real estate. So I realized that you need to know both, because if you only come from the area of technology and you don't know real estate, you might think you can fix problems, but you don't know which are those problems, and the other way around. You might be a traditional broker, and if you don't understand that you need technology and the world moves, it will move with or without you if you embrace technology or not.
Yeah.
I practiced quite a lot, so I sold quite a bit. I've been working with investors, with buyers and sellers, from first-time home buyers to very astute investors. I did use technology early on, as I said, and the company I worked for, I'm not going to name it right now, it was actually a project that came out of a Berkeley MBA. And it was great because 20 years ago, you could see in real time the users' behaviors, what they were looking at, but they were not good in retaining brokers. They didn't know how to hire them. Eventually, they sold the platform to another bigger, better-known real estate company, but it just faded away, and other companies came along like Zillow and Redfin and now Compass, that they innovated a lot in technology. So that is actually in the area of the real estate transaction and real estate sales space, brokerage. But PropTech is a lot more. After I started this, I got into global real estate. So I got to travel the world. I joined the International Real Estate Federation, FIAPSI, about 11 years ago, and then National Association of Realtors Global. And eventually I became the global coordinator for more than 20 countries for Eastern Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And
Well,
those are markets
so
that interest me the most
mhm.
because they are emerging, they have a lot of potential, and I got to learn how real estate is done in other countries. And that eventually got me into technology. So that's my journey.
Okay, so were you more focused on commercial or residential?
I focus on both, but I don't work on commercial leases, for example. So there will be smaller commercial buildings and portfolios for investors that they could be a mixed use or residential and commercial, but smaller scale or apartment buildings. But this is one vertical of my activity. Because I still keep that. I think being a broker keeps me grounded, keeps me knowing about all the changes, and this is one track of my business. But yes, I am still a practicing real estate broker in San Francisco.
So when did you start noticing that technology could solve some of the challenges you were facing in real estate?
From the very beginning, because when I arrived here and when I joined, so I arrived here in 2001. So it was a big dot-com boom, if you've heard of it. It was the boom that happened in the 90s here. And then a lot of companies went bust at the beginning of the 2000s, 2001. I think a lot of people that were in tech migrated in real estate at the time, or in doing something else. And between 2001 until the very, very big shakedown happened in 2008 in the derivative markets and in real estate markets, the real estate, activity and sector was booming, but it was inflating at the scale that was unsustainable. That's because, everybody could get a credit with no down payment here in the US. You probably heard of all that. So I just started then, I technically started in 2006. So the market was started to cool, but we were the last to cool here in San Francisco because we're not building that much, and we suffered the least. But I happened to join and be a broker after the MLS. You know that we use MLS in the US, which is very useful because it's very transparent, and all brokers will put the inventory there, and you could find buyers through another broker who might not be in your office. And it's a very good exposure for any seller, of real estate. That's, speaking with the old timers in a business, they used to say, hey, MLS in my time was just a catalog, that was updated every week, and everything was printed, right? And at some point in a late 90s, beginning of the 2000s, all that was digitized, and also the records were digitized. But it took a long time, even in the United
Mm.
States, to digitize all those records and connect them, in ways that they're very public. It's very easy for the public to check the real estate records. You can see in real time how much your neighbor sold the property for. So I noticed that technology made a huge difference and was so different than where I was coming from in Eastern Europe, and it's so important. And then working at this company that I was mentioning that started as an MBA project at Berkeley, I just realized that you can anticipate the consumer behavior, you can get better at it, you can actually provide your client, the consumer, with better choices of property, something that they really want, not to be way off base, with what they needed. Just because many times, the client could tell you that they need this, and that, and agents were not always able to come up with the best properties or solutions, but technology would really help both sides to refine that.
That's what I was about to ask. Like, was there a specific project or a problem that made you think, was it, there has to be a better way, maybe tech can help?
Yeah. And the transparency as well. I think that it's important that the consumer has a choice. They know what they're looking at. It's important to I look at the real estate process as a partnership. It has to be that way. So your client and the consumer has to have access to this information as well to make better informed decisions. But the real estate practitioner is still important because there are things that it's impossible to know unless you practice them every day. Everybody has a profession. And if you are a buyer and seller of real estate, the chances are you might do it once or twice in your lifetime, right? Unless you're an investor. But as a
So,
professional, you know a lot of other things.
so when did you actually started working with the prop tech? Like, what put you there?
PropTech is a quite relatively new term, that it was coined probably around 2017, 2018. And that's when I
Hmm.
started. Even to this day, some other people who are not in this sector ask me, what is that? Can you translate for me? What's PropTech? Prop what? Where is it coming from? And we explain people that it's property technology, and then you have to understand what it will apply to, just because you have a lot of derivatives from that. You have contact, you have, practically, if you refer to property technology, it could be any technology that can be used in any vertical of real estate, from planning to construction to selling and buying real estate to managing, right? And also in government as well. If you talk about legislation, public procurement, so on and so forth. So therefore, you will see sometimes contact, right? Just because there would be solutions regarding construction materials or platform for construction management. But I would say that if you'd like to just to find an umbrella for everything, then we tend to refer to it as prop tech. My interest has always been in economic development as well, and real estate as economic development. I think that this sector, it's a important part of the economic development process. Almost everything refers and goes back to real estate in a way or another, just because either you are targeting investors for indirect investments in your country, or you are government. Governments actually in any country on earth manage a lot of real estate assets, right? They have offices, they have schools, they have hospitals, so on and so forth, ports. And I think that for most countries, real estate sector contributes to about 20% of the GDP, more or less. And as you know, I'm a globalization economist. For me, that's something that's important to look at the bigger picture. Back home, I also worked in logistics and economic development as well for a free zone. And I just came here in very specialized real estate with that mindset. And that's what I was looking for, ways to get back involved in global and technology and bigger picture.
Great. So when you started the Silicon Valley PropTech Association, what gap in the industry were you trying to fill? Was it the economic part, or was it different?
Actually, yes. I would say that my PropTech Association is a little bit different in a way that it's focused a lot on economic development, digital infrastructure, and cross-border investments and PropTech. And when I started it because I traveled, as I mentioned, and I got to know different industries, real estate sectors in different countries around the world. And I wanted to make this connection between Silicon Valley and emerging markets in Asia. As you know, being here on the West Coast of the United States, we have very tight connections with Asian markets. A lot of our investors come from Asia. A lot of my clients came from Asia. So I developed very strong connections, relationships with Hong Kong, Singapore, and so on and so forth. And that brought me to a different kind of relationship and communication. I frequently go to Hong Kong, for example. I collaborate with the Hong Kong Trade Department Council, so I go to different events and I can see innovation from other perspectives. But also, as I mentioned, I'm very fond of, African continent, where I developed contacts in Uganda, Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa, and I got to know those markets as well. So I thought there will be a good vehicle to actually create these bridges between these markets and have different events and exchange and collaborate in the real estate sector and the innovation sector in particular, but also to help different companies who innovation can happen everywhere right now, right? We have AI. The next global prop tech company could be in Pakistan, could be in Uganda, could be in Nigeria, could be, in Indonesia, or in Romania, right? And I see more and more founders from different countries that they're always looking and want to come to US because it's a very big market, right? Sometimes because the adoption of the prop tech solutions might be slower in the founder's country of origin, they will always go towards a bigger market. So Silicon Valley PropTech Association is here to help those solutions and those founders to find a way into the US market, but also the other way around, to find the US founder and PropTech solutions to go to the emerging markets.
Great. Amazing. So, how did traditional real estate professionals react when you started talking about technology in smart cities?
So my connections are not just in the real estate brokerage. So I would say that I don't talk a lot with brokers about the smart cities, and prop tech all the time, because a lot of them they're interested, in what is interested in their field. I would say that probably my interests are a little bit larger than that, but I would say the typical real estate professional and broker in the United States will be very interested in everything that will make the profession and the real estate process easier, streamlined, because that's very important. Everything that has to do with transaction management, everything that has to do with lead generation. So I think that this is where things are right now, in this space. And I personally collaborate. I'm a broker associate with Campus. Campus is at the forefront of innovation. They do a lot of things. They have integrated AI in every single aspect of brokerage. So they really took the game to a completely different level, as far as brokerage, so that is great. You also need funds to innovate. It's very important, just to work at that level and that scale. So that is one aspect. The other one was that I venture into the deep tech and I go to a lot of tech events here in Silicon Valley. So right now it's Tech Crunch here in San Francisco. I will go to some events as well. I know that on the 30th, I will go to AWS event just because, our server is also, on AWS, our server in Uganda. And I like to know as much from outside of the real estate, sector. Why? I feel that just going to different tech events and knowing about the latest innovation, I'm just thinking how that can be incorporated into the real estate industry. So I went outside of my industry to connect and, to bring some things into it, but also to educate people because here in Silicon Valley, people are very interested in deep tech, right? Just very close to my home, I have OpenAI, Y Combinator, they're all here, And sometimes when you go to these events, as I mentioned, people are asking, what is this prop tech? Like, what are you guys doing? They think it's only brokerage,
Yeah,
And I like to talk to people and educate them and explain to them that there are greater needs around the world. For example, in other countries, I was mentioning verified titles and things like that. That is actually part of the infrastructure, digital infrastructure of the country. So there are a lot of other things needed, and they all could be prop tech.
great. So, what personal belief drives your work? The saying that keeps you motivated when others still see real estate as just bricks and land.
I like to make a difference because I believe that as many people as possible on the planet should have a home, should have a place to call home and to live in it, and they should also be able to use it as a collateral and build generational wealth. I think that it's very important. Studies show that people who do own a home and they have a home, they, eventually they could accede to middle class status faster. And as I mentioned, that's how you build wealth. You start with your home. And I saw few problems in it. First of all is the lack of housing and affordability, and that came also from the lack of data, which has to be solved with technology. And the other will be access to credit. There are a lot of people who are unbanked. They don't have access to credit. It's something that we take for granted here in the United States, where you can get credit and you can very favorable terms. And then it will be, to have the security of title to make sure that it's not fraudulent, to make sure that it's safe. And I believe in that. So that's my those are my beliefs.
That's great. So, why do you think many real estate developers and investors are still hesitant to adopt prop tech?
First of all, I think it's about the cost, right? I would say you have to look from both sides. I always advise the prop tech companies, most of the time they come to me and I talk to a lot of them. Trust me, I juried a lot of them. I see all sorts of solutions and they're great. And everybody comes very enthusiastic. Some people do have real estate experience. Some people don't have real estate experience. And they had some, I don't know, bad experience by buying or selling real estate. And that is why they decided to come with a solution, right? And I tell them, okay, if you are a prop tech founder and you came with the solution and you complain, that it's very difficult to scale and are you looking at the right clients, and are you looking to deploy it in the right place? Just because most of them, they will go in the same, and then they will attack, let's say it that way, the same potential adapters, of it. And then I ask them to look at the other side. And then if you talk with a developer, you have to understand one thing, they want you to solve few things for them, to save them time, to save them cost, and to be long term. A lot of developers want to know that you'll still be there after a year or two because they don't like to change things all the time. Let's say that I adopt your solution for property management and I put everything in digital twin with you, and are you sustainable? You will still be there. How are you going to sell your solutions to me? Are you going to white label it? What are you going to do with it? Right? They are still the people writing the check. They adapt very difficult because it's a initial investment in it, right? And you need to want to do it or to have a special budget for it. You have these big family offices who might be able to do it, or they develop even in-house solutions. But most of the developers or investment groups, or asset management companies, they are almost always looking for outside solutions, which are easy to white label, easy to adopt. But there is a cost. And either they have to pass on that cost to their clients, or they need to have a special fund for it, or they need to raise money. So there is an initial investment. They need to make sure to recuperate it. And they want to make sure that you are around, that you'll be around in a few years, which is hard to do if you are a small company, right? And you don't know, and you're fighting for funding and you're fighting to exist. And then it's maybe because it's generational discrepancies as well. Maybe, the people who've been in this business and they own a lot of assets, they're a different generation and they're a little bit more skeptical. They want to know you personally. They want more guarantee. And it might be a different way of doing business as well. But I think that all these factors will contribute. And then, of course, there is legislation too. So I think those will be the reasons. I think it has to be a better communication and a better understanding between the founders of PropTech solutions and the developers, asset managers, and the possible clients and implementers of those programs. And they need to understand each other better.
Right. So how do you handle that objection when somebody says, like, will you be around for a long time? How do you handle it?
Well, this is something you work on, because you don't know, you really don't know, if you're at the beginning and you just started that. That's why a lot of prop tech companies try to be very, to find solutions like doing POCs for free, at the beginning. You start with someone and you show them how it works, and many times you try to to get even your clients to be your investors, so you invest together. Or maybe you can sell your system if it's very good to a family office or to big asset to asset management company. It doesn't have to be big necessarily, right? So there are solutions for different scales. There are smaller solutions for smaller projects and bigger solutions for bigger projects, or big solutions for small projects, and the other way around. But I think that I see a lot of founders who are bootstrapped and trying really hard. And there's nothing wrong. I respect a lot companies which are bootstrapped. We're bootstrapped ourselves because I would like to have a product that shows potential and paid customers before we go and raise funds. I think most of the times this is what we do. We go in and we do a POC. We show them how the product works, and then that allows us to go and raise funds and to ensure that we have a longer runaway and we can scale. Or, as I mentioned, I believe that It's a very good situation and an opportunity for both asset management companies or developers to partner and invest together, maybe, with technologists.
Great. Well said. So, what's the biggest misconception you hear? Something people often get wrong about prop tech.
First of all, they don't know what it is, which is funny. But the second is that they think that, well, this is not necessarily a misconception. It's true that there are too many companies doing very similar things, but the market is very big. So obviously, you can have really creative minds in different corners of the planet that they come up with similar products because the needs could be similar, right? In different markets. So the market is huge. I think it's room for everyone that has a good product and a good marketing and a good deployment, a good scaling solution. I think one of the misconceptions is that people think it's just about transacting. They don't look at all aspects of real estate. They think, oh, it's brokerage. It's how you buy and sell. They think real estate portals. That's one thing. I would say that, like in Europe, for example, is different. There are a lot of prop tech associations, and a lot of them they could receive government endorsement and support. A lot of them specialized and they shifted more towards ESG, for example. You will see a lot in that space: decarbonization, ESG. I think prop tech is very complex and it has to deal with everything, the entire cycle of a real estate asset. And people don't realize that. I think this is one of the misconceptions, that they don't realize how important the technology is and the fact that we really cannot do without it right now. And if we don't want to adopt it right now and to make efforts, then eventually there will be legislation that will force everybody to do it, right? Because some countries are already adopting stricter laws and requirements from, you know, construction all the way to managing to decarbonization and so on and so forth. So I think that will be it. They think it's very narrow. And in reality, it's actually, yeah, just think bigger, think the entire cycle of a real estate asset.
Very well. So, many people fear that technology could replace real estate professionals. How do you respond to that fear?
That, I mean, replace some, I would say, It was something in the news, I don't know, maybe a year ago that, oh, the first AI agent in Portugal sold, made $1 million in commission. In reality, that was a bot, right? So you can probably replace and automate certain aspects of it. But there are also things that you have to do in person, just because real estate is not only, well, it's emotional for the residential part, but even for commercial, it's you need to know certain things and how to do them. And we haven't invented any AI or any technology yet that will tell you exactly how it smells. You might see, the orientation of the building, east, west, and you could have an idea how much sun it gets and so on and so forth. But I do think that if you are a good real estate professional or a good real estate practitioner in any aspect, it will not be as easy to be replaced because, it's still a long way until AI can replace us completely. You need to embrace the technology, outsource things that they are peculiar and things that it's easy to outsource or easy to do with technology. But I think the judgment and the professionalism of a true practitioner, it's still required. I don't know. Things could change, in a year. It could be completely different. But for right now, I could tell you that actually my clients prefer me to be here. I need to be here. I need to do appointments for people. Like for example, I just sold something recently, a condominium here, and I did it with my clients completely remotely. My clients were in Hawaii the entire time. They haven't been here at all, so they just took the keys over and I took care of everything. I don't know if you can have AI to go and get all the appointments and get people in. You might be able to have a small robot, but it's still costly and is not the same thing. The robot is not going to open for the plumber, for the stagers, for the electrician, for numerous problems and things that they could occur. So yes, the technology, even in property management, will help you to identify things. Yes, it makes absolute sense to put a real estate portfolio on digital twin. So you see exactly where the pipes are and what is broken. It will help you identify very quickly, problems, which will reduce your cost and damage. But you still need a physical plumber to come in there and repair that that pipe, don't you?
Yeah, right. I think AI will not replace people, but people who know how to use AI will replace people who don't.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, yes, you have a point. It's very possible. And again, there are things that you physically have to be there to be present to do.
Right. I agree with you. So, what's the toughest pushback you have received from an investor or a developer, and how did you handle it?
I would say, there are big companies who already have the advantage of first movers, right? And there are some products in the market that everybody uses it, especially in property management, for example, or in property management finances, in managing all that. And I think if you come with a new product or introduce a new startup, they might have a better product or a better idea. I think if you already have been using something for a long time, it's very difficult to switch, right? It's like, okay, convince me, but already all my books are set on this, right? Most of the time you're able to export them and to transfer them to a new company, but sometimes they would say, well, I already been using this and might be dated, might be, something that I adopted 10 years ago or 20 years ago, but Excel is fine for me, has been working, is not broken. Why should I change it? Because it's complicated, it complicates my life. I think that there are concerned about customer service or customer service breaches. They are concerned that if they change things and they switch things, every time you switch to a new system, you will need to have to up your customer service, to educate people, to show them how it works. And they're concerned about that. Almost always there are glitches, happening. So they don't like that switch. If they could do it without pain, that would be great. But this is always a concern, for investors and for asset managers. And the other one I told you, it's about, will you be around? If I switch from this, system, which yes is a little dated, a little antiquated, or maybe some of them they don't have any. Will you be around? And the other one will be that, it just takes education. You just have to explain people why would be better. And you need to, and they will ask you all the time, how much money will it save me? And how much time will it save me? How will be better for my customers? Those are the questions. You need to be ready to answer these questions all the time.
Great. So, when bringing digital title systems like PropPulse into emerging markets, what are the real obstacles, laws, trust, or mindset?
Ooh, so we want to do something that was not done before, because we would like to have a platform that would be API with the government system, with the national cadastre, and with the banking system as well. And we have the ambition to create the first verified listings platform. And our motto will be verified listings save ownership. That means we will require on our platform that every property will have that unique national number, title number. So that way we can collect and track data properly. And if they don't know it, then we will direct them, and we hope to API soon to the national system, national title system. And another important part of that will be lead generation that's safe for agents, and agents that will be vetted, because in a lot of developing markets, real estate license or not, the real estate agents are not licensed. Everybody could be a real estate agent. You can wake up in the morning and that your neighbor has a property for sale, and you drive a taxi and you find somebody, one of your clients in a taxi, and you tell them, hey, my neighbor has a property for sale, let me introduce you. And you make a little bit of money on the side, right? But you're not a professional. You make an introduction. You're kind of a matchmaker. But first of all, we are working with real estate professionals, people who belong to an association. Our market is Uganda and East Africa. We're starting it in Uganda. We are working together with the Real Estate Association of Uganda, who are very professionals. They continue their education. They are partner with the National Association of Realtors in the United States. And we can vet all these agents, right? So there are people who understand the industry. This is what they do full time. So we partner strategically. You cannot go in these markets, and when you go, you need to talk with all the stakeholders, with government. We've been endorsed by the Minister of the ICT, the information technology, by the Minister of Land. So we went and talked to everyone, from practitioners to valuers to government, and also we would like to be part of the tech community and startup community as well. So we looked around, we saw what kind of innovation is, and academia as well. So we looked everywhere because we'll also employ people, right? We'd like to be a local employer. We'll need local talent, and that is very important to us. So it's important to have an endorsement. That it's important to don't come with the misconception from a market that's very structured and very mature, like the US market, and think that you can bring something, it's a plug and play type of solution. It's not always the case. You might bring a certain aspect of element of technology, but that does not mean that you are ready to go in another country. You have to be very mindful and do a lot of research. And I always suggest to everyone, have local partners, involve people. I could have not done that without having local partners. In fact, we met and they approached me. It was a meeting of the minds. We talked, we brainstormed. It took a while for us until we registered the company, but we came with different set of skills and different knowledge. And I think that's very important. Just the idea that I would just go in some market and know it all. I would not come to your market without asking you and asking for a partnership, because I don't think it's very wise.
Right.
So
I completely agree with you.
the obstacles will be many. First of all, will be the education component. As you could imagine, people are not used to verify their property and to be ready to show us that they are who they say they are, right? If you have a property for sale, I want to make sure that either you are the agent who is allowed to represent it. So I might want to see your representation contract, and to make sure that that property indeed exists, not only that it has the correct number, but you are indeed the representative of the seller, and that is the seller. And if you are part of if you are a seller, a direct seller, I also want to see that, right? So would like to verify that. And that might be a challenge at the beginning. People are not used to that. They like to be anonymous. It's this transparency that we'd like to bring to the market, that it might not be an easy curve for us. And I'm prepared for that. We're all prepared for us, my partners as well. And we're taking on the challenge. Education will be the key. Education of population, education of real estate professionals, and working together.
Great. Perfect. So what have you learned about data ownership? Who really owns the data in PropTech? The agent, the platform, or the consumer?
I think that it's as I mentioned, I think everybody has a different perspective, but I don't think that we have different goals. The goal should be the same, right? There should be transparency in the market. And obviously, real estate agents and professionals, they want to make a living. This is how they make a living, but this is normal. It's okay. It's a profession, right? As long as you practice it with dignity and you practice it with professionalism, it's okay, right? It's normal that somebody who does a service for you to be compensated for it, right? I would say that is in the interest of government to have very trained and professional real estate agents, for example, in the market, that they deal with the public, and that they have the buffer in between. That's what I think that it's important. It's very important for the public as well, for the consumer, to have people representing the interest in a very professional manner, because they don't do that in regular basis. As I mentioned before, if you're a buyer and seller of real estate, you don't know all the aspects of it because you might do it only once or twice in your life. Not everybody is an investor, right? That does it all the time. So I think it's in everybody's interest to have a very healthy real estate industry. The government is helped a lot by having a very informed public that has certain instruments like ability to check their own titles, to be able to record the property in their names correctly, and so on and so forth. But a private real-time market is also necessary, and the involvement of the real estate professional. So it really, the goal is common. This is how I see it. It's not a conflict of interest here, and this should not be. You might also want the government, you should prefer and you should want that the government will regulate you and will protect your profession.
So, what's something about PropTech that even the industry people still don't fully understand?
You know, what they don't understand is that this industry, it's a people's business. It's very important. It's very important to understand that, it starts with building trust, and and it needs to solve a problem. So this is what it is. It's a people connection, and it's a problem solving type of industry and situation. I mean, every industry is, right, but I think that this is so personal in many ways, even at commercial level, even at, we're talking big numbers and big asset management companies or investors. I think it is a people type of connection.
Great. So, how do you deal with markets that are not ready for PropTech? Do you push ahead or wait for the timing to be right?
I think we meet markets where they are. It's very important to look at that. I think every market wants to have a change, and the time is now. I think I'm convinced that the time is now, not later. You need to try, you need to push in a way or another, but also meet the markets where they are. Because I was how I was mentioning before, the technology make us all leapfrog into another era of technology, but we're coming from different places, right? We have different legislative sets, we have different infrastructures, we have a different history of the real estate industry in different parts of the world. And I think you have to consider all that and to meet each market what it is. I think everybody is ready for technology. Technology could be implemented, but you need to work with what you have in that country. And in some countries might be important to solve the title certainty, as I was mentioning, as it happens in a lot of emerging markets, to make sure that the title are digitized, they are connected, they are transparent, that the ownership is not fraudulent, right? While in other markets, the need is different. Like, for example, look at the real estate market in the United States and the data companies here. You have a lot of data companies that they can mesh that data and report it in so many different ways. So there is a lot of competition in a market where data is easily available, very easily available. And you go in other markets when you don't have data at all and you need to start somewhere and establish it, like in East Africa. You have to start somewhere. And how do you start? By collecting proper data, clean data, in a way or another. And this is what we are trying to do with this portal in Uganda. And by having that, then you will bring a lot more investor confidence and a lot more, as I was mentioning, access to credit, access to affordable home ownership, so on and so forth.
How do you help people see that PropTech isn't about just gadgets? It's about solving real human and economic problems.
I talk about it all the time. Like I do it right now. I like to. I'm very passionate about it, so I like to talk about that. Sometimes it's showing them real numbers and real situations. I think the best way to do it is by building cases and showing that in a very concrete manner. I think most people have to see it. And right now, in the era of AI, when everybody can take courses and do this and that, I think it's important to try to build things, build cases, show things. So I like to narrow down on different cases around the world and just give examples. And I think that helps people to visualize.
Great. So, from your experience, what's the biggest mistake developers make when trying to add tech to their project, tech to their projects?
First, I think will be not enough research. Sometimes too much personal connection is not good. They might have a relative or somebody that they will trust in a family, or a son or a daughter, that they will come with some solution that might not be that good. But sometimes actually those are assets, because usually, especially if you have a family office or a generational type of situation, usually the next generation will push for change and reform, and it's a good thing, right? But enough research, right? Wanting to be techie and be the technology adapter, but not knowing exactly what you want to solve. So you need to know what you need to solve, what are your pain points, and then to do some research, talk to a few people, do a POC, as I said, which is the easiest thing to do. And most of the times, a lot of startups or a lot of tech companies are willing to establish a very good relationship and try to do that. But you cannot do it without knowing what you want to solve. You have to know where your losses are, where your profits come from, and what needs to be improved.
Great. So, what's one PropTech solution that completely changed how a project performed, either financially or operationally?
I think anything that has to do with property management, even early on, property management, financial solutions, and invoicing clients, they've been around for a long time right now. Those are things that I think they change the way property management companies or asset management companies change. It changed a lot, but this is just one example that comes into my head right now.
Okay. So, how do you measure success in PropTech? What metrics matter most beyond just ROI?
It really comes to, well, of course, ROI is important, right? You want to make sure that you have a good return on your technology investment, but it's really changing. It's solving a problem. It's solving a problem for your consumers and passing on that, the ease of use to your consumers, really. If your consumers are happy, if you make their life easier, the usage of the platform easier, then I think that that's another no-brainer measure of success.
Great. So, you mentioned about impact metrics like community benefit and sustainability. How do you bring those into business conversation?
It's, almost everyone, especially here in San Francisco Bay Area, but all around the world is preoccupied with that. And as I mentioned before, there are countries who will regulate that. And even if you are not preoccupied by it and you're not interested, then you'll be forced to do it. There are pieces of legislation in place that they will force you to measure ESG, for example. That European Union has very strong laws, Singapore has very strong laws, and other countries in Southeast Asia and some states in United States as well. Like, for example, in California, you will have to transition from gas usage to electric. That conversion will have to happen. Everything that will have to do with decarbonization, with ESG, with conversion of commercial properties into residential, and every technology that will solve that problem, it will be very welcomed in a market like California. That's an example, right? So if you don't see the benefit, and let's say that you are an asset management company or a developer that doesn't see the need to do it, then there will be some sets of laws who will make you see those benefits in a way of or another. So you will need to reform. If not, there will be a lot of other, factors, like, for example, insurance. Insurance policies are very difficult to get these days in California and in the United States, and they have very strict criteria, stricter and stricter, regarding everything, from piping to, environmental concerns, so on and so forth. So those will be definitely factors. They will make the real estate industry, from architects to planners to developers to practitioners, see things differently.
Great. So, how can developers balance profitability with creating tech enabled housing that actually helps communities?
Some of them, they have to start small if they've never done it before, right? Start with small things like digitizing records. Some of property management companies, developers, asset management companies, I'm not talking about the big ones. They might still have, let's say, just paper records. They can start small, and they have to incorporate technology in everything they do. So obviously, everything that they start to plan now and to do now, it has to have some technology incorporated into it. And a lot of them do this already. And in the same time, they need to update old records, things that they've had before, or old buildings, old records, old buildings, old platforms. It takes time, obviously. And it's just both a little bit of a change and conversion and incorporating a little bit of technology in everything they do.
Great. So, how do you see AI changing property development and management in the next few years?
I think it already has changed in many ways, just because you see so many, right? You don't know for sure if it's a bot answering to you or not. So first of all, I think it improved the customer service, the response and the expectations from the consumers, especially in property management world, are pretty high and sometimes necessary, just because if you have a pipe that is breaking in midnight and it's flooding your apartment, you want a very fast response, right? And sometimes people don't work 24 hours, especially not in property management. That's why you have a emergency line, and communicating with an effective bot that has all the information about the property. It helps a lot and it helps you navigate through different things. So that will be one thing. As I was mentioning before, that company had a AI agent and made $1 million in sales in Portugal. It allowed them to automate things and to work 24 hours and to respond to people from all over the globe that they were on different time zones, right? So that's one aspect of it. Another one will be including it in all this chain layering with digital twin, for example, and has already changed it in many ways. You can assign it different tasks that they were cumbersome for a human being before. I think in some ways it might have reduced the number of people working for some of those companies, but not necessarily. I don't see that happening yet. But it certainly improved the customer service aspect.
You're right. So, for smaller developers or investors, what's the simplest or most affordable way to start using PropTech effectively?
First will be with managing their properties, right? The management system will be the easiest way. I think everybody who is, a forward-thinking, respectable property management company and developers, they do have some sort of technology integrated, being using D mapping and Matterport. At the minimum, you must have you should use Matterport, right? To have a proper plan of your development. Let's say that you're a developer right now and you are developing I don't know, a 100 unit building ready to sell. You're going to use very modern marketing, right? You want to have a 3D and digital twin representation of that. You want all the possible potential buyers of the one of your units to see exactly, to click, to go on your website before they purchase anything, click on it, have a 3D representation, walk them through the and have an exact orientation of the building, to know exactly what it is in the building, so on and so forth. So a lot of developers, they do that. You see them at developers in Dubai, you see that here, in San Francisco, you see it pretty much all over the world. You see that people can see easily what they're buying, and a lot of the transactions are done remotely. People rent apartments or people buy and sell remotely just because the technology is as good, right? You can have almost exact representations of that. I think setting up a development like that from the beginning, it will help you sell faster or rent it faster, and you have better communication with your clients. If you also introduce bots and very good chats and very good customer service answer, that's where you can start. And I'm sure that a lot of people start exactly there.
Great. So, what are 3 questions every developer should ask before investing in a PropTech solution?
How it will help my customers, explaining them, these are my customers and this is what I need. How can you solve this? So yeah, I will actually give them a very concrete example. I will say, I'm facing this problem, and this is actually something that I've been struggling with and I don't know what to do. I'm just giving you this exact problem. Solve that problem for me. How would you solve it? If I will buy your solution or I will implement your solution, how it will solve this problem for me. And then you go, of course, to savings and time.
So, what's one underrated use of PropTech that more people should know about but don't talk about enough?
It's actually underrated. User PropTech would probably be one of the things I just talked about, which is knowing how to market and present. It is really marketing. Marketing is very important. Sometimes people don't know how to market properly. I think there are so many solutions, all this 3D. I mean, I've been using Matterport for a long time just because it was, they do have the competitive advantage in almost all markets because they were the first movers, right? So you still see them dominating the market. And I would say some people don't use the 3D tours. I like to use them a lot, sales of real estate. And you see them being used a lot more right now, but they still might be marketing methods. There are a lot of marketing methods who are underused. And the other ones are financial reporting. I think that they're not used properly. I think that they became more affordable right now. There's so many solutions out there. And I think if you want to have a proper management, property management system, you should use some kind of proper reporting, proper invoicing, proper communication with your customers. I think that those are things that they're still underutilized, and there are a lot of them out there, and they're at the intersection of PropTech with FinTech. And I think they are very important, especially
Great.
if you are a larger scale. Yeah.
So, what region of the world do you believe is going to leap ahead with PropTech?
I do believe in everything that has to do with environmental solutions. That is important. And anything that will have to do with solving affordable housing solutions. Everything that's affordable housing solution will lead, because I think the entire world has this kind of problems. I would say the world needs housing, and it's a shortage of affordable housing everywhere. I'm not talking about luxury condominiums, because as you might know, almost all the real estate crisis in the world and implosions happen with the luxury condominium markets. We're talking about affordable housing. Yes, we're building, but what are we building? Can people afford it? Can most people afford it? So I think everything that will release some of the real estate inventory. Just let's take, for example, Western Europe and United States. There are so many underutilized commercial buildings, and that market of commercial real estate is not coming back. It's never going to be the way it was before, because of the massive changes that they've been happening in the past 10 years and then accelerated with the pandemic, right? All the solutions that they will be practical, and they will be contact PropTech solutions that they will help convert commercial buildings into residentials will be very hot. It's still extremely expensive to do that. In some cases, it's even more expensive than to build new. And all solutions that they will help that conversion, I think that they will be important. And everything that has to do with decarbonization, everything that has to do with affordable financing solution and accessing credit, it's also something that I think it's the future in this industry. And of course, there will be different variations of brokerage model, but I think eventually those will cap out, because there are as many models of brokerage that you can have, right? And they already exist. There will continue to be innovation in that, maybe more integration, but I think that's the future.
So, how do you see PropTech changing the way we buy, sell, and manage properties over the next decade?
It's already changing, but I think it's going to be more remote than has already been remote, at least for me in my market. I've done a lot of remote, transactions, and has been happening for a while. But it's going to be more sight unseen. It's going to help consumers to take decisions from miles apart. They don't have to be present there, just because they will have a very accurate technology and representation of everything from title to the way the property looks. As I say, they will be almost real time, AI, digital twin, all this will be layered in, and it will be very easy. There will probably be more solutions to do international cross-border transactions that has been still financially difficult. It's not that easy to use the blockchain everywhere. It's still something that's aspirational, at least here in the United States. That's because the industry is siloed. The licensing part, the financial part, the escrow part, they're all differently regulated. That therefore it's difficult to have a public blockchain. You could have private blockchain, but not public blockchains unless the government leads that effort. And you see government in Singapore, for example, or Dubai leading the effort. In Singapore, everything that's a new construction, it's right now on blockchain. So you'll see a lot more on that. So they will require the government involvement as well. And that will also benefit the consumers, just because if you have a ledger where you know that the properties are safe, they're vetted, they're verified, that will be very important as well. So that's how I see the future. The future will be a lot more remote purchases and a lot more technology used and easier loan approvals. Maybe we'll see a 24 hours loan approval versus 2 weeks or a month. Instant, right? Instant verification, instant insurance, property insurance, instant mortgage approval in some places, not everywhere, because again, the legislative hurdles are greater in some countries than others. Some countries are a lot more regulated than others.
Great. So how can PropTech help close the housing affordability gap in both developed and emerging markets?
Things, a lot of construction materials, financing solutions, conversion of commercial into residential real estate, and access to credit, bringing down interest rates, and of course, government involvement. Without that, it's not possible. So you'll have to see more PPP collaborations that will involve PropTech solutions. That could be anything from proper planning, proper data. I mean, let's start with data first, because PropTech, it's data first. And based on data, you plan, you build, you sell, and you manage. This is how it goes.
Great. So what new skill set do you think the next generation of real estate professionals will need?
They need to know technology. They need to know how to use it in their consumer benefit and in their own benefit. They need to know how to prove their value and show the consumers that by knowing technology very well, they can save them time and money and represent their best interests.
Great. So if you could change one policy or regulation to make PropTech adoption faster and fairer, what would it be?
It will have to do with safety and environmental concerns. That's very important. You can change that, but you said one to make PropTech a true adoption. It has to do with ESG. I will change a lot more with that. So you see governments who are more proactive, just because that doesn't refer just to environment, but also has a social component.
So if somebody who's new and want to get into PropTech would come to you for an advice, what advice would you give them?
To learn the industry, I think that they need to know the real estate industry. They need to know and understand how it works, the mechanism from financing to building, to selling, to inventory, to data. They need to understand that to consumer behavior. It's very important to do your research and to know the real estate industry and then think about a solution. So it has to be about a problem and the solution, not just technology for the sake of technology.
Perfect. So we'll move towards our last segment. It's going to be rapid fire. I'll start.
I would try.
Okay. What's one word people use to describe you that you secretly like?
Passionate.
Right. Coffee or tea when you're deep in strategy?
Coffee.
First thing you check in the morning, email or market news.
News.
Favorite city in the world for real estate innovation.
San Francisco still.
Great. One PropTech startup you wish you had founded.
Something in digital twin, I would say.
Okay.
I can't tell you a company right now, but
A book that changed how you think about business leadership.
there are so many books, but well, I'm an economist and I like everything that has to do with market economy. I still like Adam Smith. So yes, that would be my favorite economist. And I find the principles that they will apply to these days, in everything. So I would say that my favorite writer, not in real estate, but in general, in economic principles, will be Adam Smith, and I think The Wealth of Nations.
Great. What's harder, raising capital or changing mindsets?
Changing mindsets.
Okay. One thing Silicon Valley can learn from emerging markets.
So many things. Making more with less.
Okay.
Because a lot of emerging markets have a lot less resources than Silicon Valley.
If you had to build your dream smart home, what's the first feature you'd add?
It has to be smart, necessarily. Smart or not, it has to have very good light, big windows and a lot of light. But in terms of technology, to connect systems, just maybe to have it more integrated, that will be important for me. But I would tell you something important, solar panels. I would
Solar
like to be
panels.
off grid and I would
Okay. What's one tech trend you think is overhyped right now?
It's still AI. I mean, it's a good thing and also it's a overhyped. It's a thing as well.
Okay. If you weren't doing PropTech, what career would you be in?
Anything that has to do with global economic development, which I still do, which I do, but that's my passion. Or I would be a writer.
Great. So what's your biggest daily productivity hack?
How do I hack that? Just concentrating at just using block timing, pretty much.
Okay. Complete this sentence. The future of real estate is
Future of real estate is people.
perfect. Thank you so much, Alina. It was wonderful to have you on the show, and I enjoyed every word you said. And there were a lot of new things that I get to learn from you about PropTech, and it's great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the conversation. Thank you for sometimes squeezing me and trying, and putting me on a very tough spot. But I do appreciate that. I like to be pushed sometimes and push my limits. So it's been a pleasure, and thank you very much for having me on your
Great.
show.
Perfect. And you did great, to be honest. This is Real Talk. See you next time.
See you next time.